Izskatās, ka mēs esam pazaudējuši kādus cilvēkus.
Looks like we lost some people, but let's hope everyone will come back.
Tātad mans on please if you don't speak Latvian or you don't understand Latvian, better say.
I'm really glad not to let you fall asleep after such a nice lunch. I will really try to do that. And today afternoon we will more speak about Latvia. We heard a lot of international, interesting speakers spoke about international situation, about situation in some countries. But now let's speak more on Latvia. What's happening here? What can we learn from that, and how can we go forward in the future? This part, this little introduction, it's not going to be long. So the present situation, Latvian tendencies and obstacles, and later we will have a panel discussion which we will analyze more in detail. Unfortunately, Rita Ruduš, who had to be moderator, she will not be able to participate, and thanks Marija Golubeva, who will replace her. My task in this introduction before the panel is to outline the situation in total, in general. And when I heard the previous presentation, especially Greg's, I really had this copy-paste feeling about what's happening in Europe and here. We always want to think that we are unique and special, but in fact, the same processes are happening in many countries at the same time. And when we hear these similar visual identities and similar messages, it's clear that this process comes from the one source, and we will speak more about during this panel. Of course, not everywhere. We also heard the positive examples, and one of the things why we speak about Estonia, Malta, Ireland, we want to show you that this move towards equality is different, and that different countries have been successful in their way towards equality. And even it's countries which are usually not very friendly to LGBT rights. And when we compare our country with other countries, especially Netherlands, Denmark, when we compare ourselves also to countries with very strong Catholic prehistory, which are still very friendly to our agenda, we can see that these ways, these roads are very different, and our task is to choose which is our way. What methods can we use to get where we need to get? During the last year, we had EUROPRIDE in Latvia is the biggest and best event which we have organized in Baltic states. 5,000 people participated. We didn't have to fight in a court for rights to go. We had amazing cooperation with local government and state institutions, so we didn't have much barriers. For example, Armenian restaurant owner in a park, he said he would love to have Pride there every year. And it really inspired our society, LGBT society, and gave us faith that the real change can happen here as well. At the same time, the EUROPRIDE and the success and the fact there were no incidents, it created this illusion that everything is great, but of course it's not great. And one thing which is positive is that, yes, we have this freedom to come together to speak, but this right is not everything. People are still not protected from discrimination because of their gender identity. Hate speech and crimes are not included, like when it comes to gender factors. Istanbul Convention is seen as a danger because God forbid that a trans person can get any rights. And Nils Muizhnieks, who is in a Europarlament member, he's also spoke and said that we should start also to discuss the intersex question. And I cannot say that there are no new movements and happenings in this area, but still, we have some roadblocks. And when we think about why they exist, then I must say that there is a vacuum of political will and leadership. To change something radically, we lack this political will. And even those who are positively or naturally natural towards our rights, they are not willing to push through some of these laws because the right-wing populism and the manipulative methods which we already were mentioned today, that it creates this opinion that that if you really protect the rights of LGBT people, that will cost you the voters, your votes. But no one sees that if you will work, if you protect these people, they will actually you gain something because they will vote for you. And therefore, it's great that we will have one of the public person, like political figure, in the last panel today. Also, a while ago, we had a poll. What is the attitude towards the LGBT people? And the results showed that if the people who would find if a person would find out that one of his family members or work employees who is LGBT person, then 50% would not change their opinion. That means the half would change. 10% would contact less with this person, and 12% would openly go against this family member or coworker. That means that there are 12% of our people who would be pushed away from their own families if they would be risked to come open, come clean about this issue. That means that it's it means that, and that explains why why so many people are still hiding. And we had another poll a while ago when we asked if people were asked like if they know any of the LGBT people, and it turns out that a huge part of the society believes that they know anyone. They don't know anyone of this part of society, which means that it's impossible. That means that many of LGBT people are just still hiding. And that is the factor which is puts our work on brakes, and which is also together with this lack of leadership, political leadership and political will. And I'm really looking forward to speak with our panel members, and I'm happy to invite Iluta, Kārlis, Aivita, and Evita, and so please come forward. It will be really interesting to find out what you see. Good day. I hope you can hear me. Looks like, yeah, that yes. I'm not Rita Ruduš, as you heard. My name is Marija Golubeva. I used to be a member of the board in Mozaīka, but it's way back. Now I'm still working. I work in a Providus organization and mainly with the different issues, but I'm still very interested in what's going on with all the LGBT rights in Latvia. Now we have invited Evita Goša. She is a lawyer, one of the active members of Mozaika, Aivita Putniņa, social anthropologist from Latvia University, docent. Iluta Lāce, Resource Center for Women, MARTA. She is a doctor there, and she has been fighting for women's rights for many years. And Kārlis Streips, a supporter for LGBT rights, and now also works as a lecturer in Latvian University. So the issue here is, as you can imagine, is where we are in Latvia. We heard a lot about what is happening in Ireland, Malta, Poland, Czech Republic. So now we should turn back to ourselves, not because we're so unique, but because we are here. So the question is where we are when it comes to the LGBT rights, what's happening with this part of the society, where we are when it comes to gender equality. And because we see from the Malta example that it's interconnected issues. And let's talk about society, their attitudes and state politics. And so I would like to give 3 or 4 minutes to each panel members, and then let's leave room for questions as well. So Evita, you go first. Thank you, Marija. I will be the first to speak. I prepared for today's speech, and this morning when I was listening online at this conference, and what Lizette mentioned this morning really shook me, and everything what I wanted to share really collapsed, because for years I heard the stories from the Estonian colleagues that Estonia is so unique and prides are not necessary there. The cultural events are enough, and we will have this partnership law. And we believe this myth that Estonia is the success story. And we see now that it's not true. And for me, I think it's so important to see that we never signed any contracts, that we never allowed anyone to push us around, and we did what we believed we have to do and follow the example of others around the globe. We created our society. We tried to do everything we were able to do to make this part of the society more visible, to mainstream the LGBT issues, so that this part of the society would not be just a unique part, but it's a normal part of the society, which is just as any other part creates together this huge puzzle of the society, where each person is unique when each gives something for the rest of the people, and where everyone is unique. And during the last 10 years since the Mozaika exists, it's very important it has been created. And it was really painful to hear what Lizette said, that this agreement that some active public life is not happening, including life on the streets and open, going outside, demonstrating that you exist, that means that this part of the society doesn't exist as a united body. Of course, we're all different, but in Mozaika context, we see that, yes, there is this part of the society, there are new people, and I'm happy to see new faces, people I don't even know. They've joined this society, and it's a very positive fact. And also, yesterday evening, we discussed why and how Mozaika has done during these 10 years. We don't even think about how it was 10 years ago. But yesterday we did remember how it was so dangerous to walk on the street 10 years ago. I remember myself carrying this gas weapon with myself. And I remembered how we were cursed in the name of Jesus Christ, how we were called and threatened by on the phone.
Today we have somehow forgotten it, but it was actually quite recently. So if on the bad days we think that nothing is happening, nothing changes, also legislation has remained the same as it was 10 years ago. In fact, we have made a long road. We have made progress compared to the situation 10 years ago. I believe that by doing what we are doing now, by creating the community, speaking about legislation, being active, insisting on our rights, and as well as performing strategic legal proceedings, especially if we continue to do what we have done before, but in a more active way, then we can reach the break point. Then at one moment the political environment will need to change. We see the politicians, and they are the same as they were in 2006. So basically the same people are controlling all the power in the country. It makes us believe that nothing is developing, there is no growth, but at one moment everything should change. There should come a point of break, and I believe it will be soon. Thank you. The basic message, as far as I understand, is that community is important. Iluta, you have different insights. What do you think about this area? Every day I work to improve the situation of women in various areas. I also work in relation to children and youth and improving their conditions. I believe that at the moment, on the one hand, we have reached some progress, especially when it comes to daily life and attitudes in society. There are more and more people who are brave enough to come out of the closet, who are ready to call themselves bloggers, who write about that on the internet, who are ready to call themselves or label themselves feminists. However, recently we had a discussion on the parliament about, however, years ago we had political discussion about potential legislation against discrimination on all grounds. We understand that currently such political discussion or political discourse were not possible. And we have to defend what we have already reached. For instance, we shouldn't give up on reproductive rights. We shouldn't give up on freedom of speech and freedom of association. Recently, several legislation amendments have been adopted, for instance, related to morality. There was also a legislative proposal related to sexual education, and we understood that teachers in schools are not ready to speak about homosexuality and transgender people. With all the recent legislative amendments related to morality, the situation is becoming worse and worse, and we have to defend our values and our current condition. We have tried to push initiatives for legal protection of partnerships, which would apply to all members of society. At the moment, this initiative has stopped. The current social discourse or political discourse, which is coming from particular political forces and organizations, is that gender equality is the same as homosexuality. Homosexuality is the same as pedophilia, and altogether that is something awful and very dangerous. This is the image which is created in the society. This is the current ongoing discourse. Therefore, it's very difficult to develop basic human rights and equality rights in society. We have a social voting platform called My Voice, where people can vote for legislative proposal on a registered partnership, but this has also stopped. And the recent discussion was related to Istanbul Convention. This was also attacked in relation to transgender people and homosexuality. Besides, last year, in 2015, the Minister for Justice said that he definitely needs to perform scrutiny of Istanbul Convention, despite the fact that Latvia was one of the drafters. The final decision was not to join the Istanbul Convention because the Ministry of Justice believed that it would also provide more rights to LGBTs. So what you are saying is that unless we have progressive politicians, nothing is going to improve. On the one hand, we see that there's some improvement in the mindset of society. It has become more progressive. People are paying more attention to human rights, and they want to see some changes, also structural changes. But on the other hand, the political leadership is not ready, is not willing, or is not brave enough to change something. We can also see that the society is taking different camps and different stands. There are people who are promoting discrimination and people who are against discrimination. In the Resource Center for Women, MARTA, we are working on awareness raising in society. We visit schools, we speak to experts, and we try to raise the society raise awareness in society. We insist on having sexual education in school curricula. So we are currently speaking about things that should be changed in order to change the society. What does Aivita think about that? I believe that society is gradually changing. When conducting surveys in society related to gender issues, we see that people may think one thing but do something else. Recently, we had a survey on why people are not getting married, why they prefer to live simply in civil partnership. Many people believe that marriage is a very good thing and is highly evaluated in society. This opinion has not changed during the last 10 years. However, if you formulate the question differently, if you ask people, do you support that people are living together without getting married? They say, yes, it's okay. Many of them are not even going to get married, even if they have children, even if they have been living together for several years. It's okay for them both ways. Sometimes people get married only after the second child has been born to them. I believe that the emphasis on relationship as such and our attitude towards other people is what needs to be changed and what will change in the future. I'm happy that in Mozaika there's a small internal interest group. It's not a clash of interests, but actually you are supporting each other and providing humane support to each other, which makes the organization and the community stronger. Recently, there were debates and discussions in society related to morality legislation and to adoption or non-adoption of Istanbul Convention. It all has interesting mindset underlying it. Of course, it's much more simple for us to live in a world where everything is put in clear boxes. It's man, woman, family, marriage, etc. But if we see something different that is deviating from the traditional or standard norms, then we believe it doesn't function. In Latvia, the number of divorce is very high, or the rate of divorce is very high. And if we still continue to think pattern-wise and think in boxes, that's actually a huge loss for society at large. Therefore, the discussion on morality legislation is very important. We shouldn't go from one extreme to another. We should find something valuable in each person. We shouldn't only look for flaws. So if it were possible to change the way we look at things and we speak of things, then also the society would change. The Istanbul Convention is something that would ensure better protection for women against violence. Also, representatives from the association family are present here. They sent a public letter which paid a lot of attention to the thinking in box, especially in the context of bathrooms or lavatories. That is, what would happen in the world if trans persons would go to this lavatory or bathroom or another? If we had a general view on that, if we had deeper insight, I believe it were more beneficial to society. Another thing is that we need to improve the quality of policy. There's one thing how we create relationship at home. But another thing is how relationship between genders is seen by policymakers. The gender issue is an important topic for politicians, and they are using it for various purposes. This is also one of the areas where the Resource Center for Women, MARTA, could take an active stand. The policy and the decisions should not be based on populist articles, but rather on the real situation in our society, in our communities, in our families. As already mentioned by Kristīne, there are so many people who haven't even noticed that they are working together or living together with LGBT people. That means that our relationship in society is not visible enough and not strong enough. When performing social surveys among LGBT community, I understood that LGBT people are actually quite happy. They have broader views and everything, and they can think about the box and they can see positive traits in many people. Thank you. Kārlis, you are one of the persons who have not been ashamed to speak about these questions and issues. This is 21st century, which should be progressive, but at the same time, despite of many clever people among politicians, journalists, etc., we still have the Ministry of Justice, which in 2015 published a report on teaching people how to live in marriage and saying that women are like lipid and men are like protein. That's why they should attach to each other. Why aren't other members of society saying that it's not normal, it's quite insane? I don't know. I've been a teacher in the university for many years. I don't know what happens to them when they graduate.
I've taught in university for many years, and I don't know what happens with them after they get out of my hands. But when it comes to Latvia, well, I'm something else, and our ministers is something else. One of our ministers came out in open, and his popularity dropped immediately. But now we need to understand that homosexuality or heterosexuality is not the prime thing when we think about ministers. When we choose our ministers, it's more about their brain quality. But still, I talk about myself. The fact that I am gay arrived in Latvia before I arrived in Latvia. I've been open since I myself realized I'm a gay. But this interesting fact is that it's very rare thing when I'm directly told something negative. I remember one panel discussion, there was one weird person who said something about marriage with tractors or some heavy equipment or something. Another was the pastor who spoke about demons and such things. But it's more about behind the back. But in Latvia, in fact, we are two now who are fully in open, like me and our one of the ministers. Others are not so open, and when it comes to the open things, for example, the before and after prides, we can see and hear so many things, the commentaries, etc. But when it comes to me, it's not so much about being open or what. But we need to understand and look at the fact that so many LGBT people are moving out of Latvia. And there must be a reason why they're leaving Latvia. Talking about political will, it's more question about do we have enough brave people, and it's lack of this courage actually in Latvian politics as such, not only to LGBT rights. And we are thankful to your sports and Latvia development policy, and all of those who are actually moving forward our agenda, but still, when even the LGBT agenda is moved forward, then sometimes we miss very important facts. For example, in this new draft of the law, which is moved forward in our open portal, My Vote portal, then many ideas are lacking. But it all comes back to the most essential thing. If you are LGBT person, you must come clean. You must be open. First of all, with your own family, and then with the rest of the society, and then things will move forward. Thank you. I think we can skip the discussion between ourselves because the most important is to discuss these things with you. So now we have 15 minutes when we would love to hear your questions, your comments. No comments, no questions from the audience.
I don't know who could answer that, but my question is to all of you, do you have any information? How close is Latvian parliament to any kind of legislation? How ready are they? How many members of your parliament? You have 100 members, yeah? How many members would today support such an act?
6.
If anyone wants to open up this question, because the first answer was 6 out of 100. Any enlarged? No, we've seen it clearly. A while ago, Vegos Pulīts, which is one of the 6, he submitted this cohabitation law. The commission refused it immediately. I think it's the... Do you have any comment? Iluta wants to comment. Also, the fact that this issue has been brought up in many levels, various situations, opening discussions, and one of these discussions on TV, 2 of the parliament members said, "Okay, let's have a poll. Let's find out how important it is for society." But this poll actually was put more, direction was different. Why people are not getting married, excluding the whole group of this poll. But now this poll has been done, we have results, and no movement any forward can be felt. Like it's non-existent. You were one of the who did this poll. This issue is like how far have been gone to allow LGBT couples to register. I don't know. You see, the problem is not only about LGBT couples. It's the same with the heterosexual couples who haven't been officially registered, and it's like 2/3 of the heterosexual couples who are just living together. They cannot get any rights because it's clear understanding if they will get these rights, then the rest will get. It's also about Mozaīka, the tragedy, because everyone but one woman got the support from the state, but this woman wasn't living in registered marriage, so she didn't get any support. Yes, and it's tragic because the country, the state, doesn't recognize these families as families, and they're not protected, and their children are not protected. Also, another story, it's about women who are suffering from violence because the law says that if we want to change the law, then we had to change the definition of what is family, and it's still being the ball is kind of kicked from one ministry to another. Yes, there's some nice changes when it comes to protection and a criminal understanding. In Latvia, LGBT people are protected in an employment context because Europe threatened with sanctions, and with a very small like difference between votes, but Parliament had to accept it. So we have some good initiatives. The main thing is that because the arguments now is that transpersonal bathrooms and it's going to be crazy, etc. Okay. I'm gay, and I also stepped out in the open, and I see many in the hall who are finally stepped out in the open. They're well known in society. It's more about who knows us. Like you are having your own show the ministers almost every day on a screen, but it's always about our influence zone. There's so many open gays, but we have our influence spectrum is much smaller. And yesterday we discussed those who started Mozaīka and who were on a board, and those who were on a board, of course, they stepped out publicly and they've supported publicly and openly this work. And sometimes I believe we need to recognize and be happy about what we have. Yes, the situation sometimes is critical, but actually we need to rejoice because this is 10 years. Let's have a little bit more joy about what we've done. Of course, I don't know the sexual orientation of these two ladies in our panel. I assume you might be even heterosexual, but thank you for the support which comes from the heterosexual world. And because sometimes we just separate LGBT, but we need the support from others. As I understand, it was comment. You see, I am not objecting what you said, but I believe that Latvia, we don't have any gay politicians, sportists, or actresses who are open about it. And these are people who have to step out. And here you had the question. Association, family. I have two questions. Also, what you mentioned was the quantity. How many are you, during these 10 years? When it comes to the numbers, how much your numbers have grown during these 10 years? If you look back 10 years, the numbers are sometimes even important. And second question, I don't know who can comment. What are the best gains, benefits from the Istanbul Convention? Since we don't have so much time, maybe when it comes to LGBT, then Evita, maybe you can answer on numbers. What do you think by you or us? How you think that we are kind of dragging in or number of members? Okay, number of members. Situation is that in 2006 there were 16 people who started. At the moment there are 200 supporters. These are people who are actively worked in a work. We're not talking just about gay and lesbians who are such people. I think that science has given us the answer. It's usually at any country, it's usually the same number, the percentage of the population. We are not going to fight with the science facts. Yes, comparingly, we've grown so many times since we exist. Istanbul Convention aim is to eliminate the violence against women, especially in family. Main thing this convention speaks about this proportion when there's violence against women comparing to any other type of violence is much higher, and it's historical. It has developed historically, and because they're not equal rights when it comes to women. And there are many events which are pre-planned to create a more equal world. And when we sign this convention, we take upon these steps that we agree that we'll make steps towards the more equal world. And if we sign this document that we are part of European Union and we are actually watching what we are doing, monitoring our steps towards this aim. And there's a special group which is looking after monitoring how this convention is being implemented, and we are monitoring what's happening with countries and how the situation is improving, hopefully. Unfortunately, we cannot hear the question. It's the the aim is to eliminate, decrease this violence against women, especially in family. You're afraid that you will be beaten up. I wanted to add to this that a few years in the European Union Council, there was this resolution to eliminate discrimination towards LGBT people, and all of the members voted for, including Latvia, and I was surprised. And I called to the Latvian embassy there, and they said, "Did we really vote yes?" And she confirmed that yes. And these political issues are interesting.
Thank you. In a couple of minutes, we should finish off this discussion. Probably the members of the panel could give the final remarks in a couple of sentences.
Un es gribētu pateikt, ka strādājot kopā.
I'd like to say that if several players come together and work together, then structural changes are possible. That could also help to change the society and the attitude in society, but we should cooperate. I can fully agree with Iluta. And just to add that at the beginning we had the idea of speaking on 3 areas or levels in the discussion. I don't think we should differentiate between the levels and compare them and decide which is better, which is worse. I also believe that we should cooperate and have better cooperation among all the areas. Aivita? I would like to reiterate what I said at the beginning. We should appreciate each other more. Also, in the context of the European Union, which is currently experiencing a reflux of conservative values, especially when it comes to European Commission, as Kārlis also agrees. I believe that even in such a situation, we shouldn't underestimate the value of saying something good to each other. We should become more positive towards each other. And here I see that members of female organizations and LGBT organizations are at one table. That's a good example. Thank you. In the morning session, we heard from the Ireland that LGBT issue is not something controversial to family values, and in the future, I believe all of us would support inclusive society. Let us thank the members of the discussion. I would like to express a gratitude to the members of the panel. Now we'll have coffee break for half an hour, and at 3:30, the final panel.
I run across town.